So let's get started. Everybody just got it for me. Thank you. All right, so today we're going to talk just for a minute around 4 buckets. The APS 5 is one slide. I just want to remind everybody what helps to drive our work here. We're going to talk a little bit about family engagement and just kind of review some of our survey results and next steps and some of the things that we want to achieve with our families and family engagement. We're going to update you all a lot on the work that our Go team has been doing. Our awesome Go team and myself have been working for a long time, hours on end, really the last few weeks, on setting our budget for next year. And I want to review some of that information with you now that it is a little more public. We had a great data meeting with APS and my associate superintendent, Dan Sims. And I want to review a little bit of that conversation so we can talk about what we're doing at Brandon to help close some of the achievement gap. And then, of course, we'll finish up just with a quick update on COVID and COVID mitigation. So once again, thanks for being here. And we threw some pictures in there, too. It looks like a book character dress-up day from this year. So I just want to remind everybody what the APS 5 is, and it's really our focus for the 21-22 school year. Everything that we do should be geared towards one of these 5, if not more, of these APS 5 buckets, and that is data, curriculum instruction, whole child support and intervention, personalized learning, and signature programming. We talk about data today. Data drives all of our decisions that we make. Curriculum instruction has to do with our programming and what we offer our students, whether it's digital programs, phonics programs, math, ELA, science, and social studies, and really what those best practices are. Whole child support and intervention has to do a lot with our SEL, has to do with our wraparound services for students, use of our social worker and our counselor, as well as our social emotional screener that we give, among other things. Personalized learning has a lot to do with our technology and finding those pathways of learning for students. And this is something that we are continuing to build upon and grow with. And then lastly, signature programming. And we are an IB school. We follow the IB PYP, the primary years program. But I also love to just include DLI in our signature programming, because I do believe that a school like Brandon with such an awesome program like dual language immersion should be considered kind of a signature program. That's what makes it special. So I want to make sure all of our parents know that, and this is what anchors the work that we do. So a little while ago, we put out, I don't expect everybody to be able to read this. I just want you to know that so I can go through some of it. I realize the slides are a little small on this. But a little while ago, we put out a family engagement survey just to kind of see how we're doing with our families. And we really wanted to have a wide reach and hear from the vast majority of our school, as much as our community as we could possibly find. We asked about 10 questions that range from, as a parent, I feel welcome at Morris Brandon, to I know how to access the B-mail, I receive timely and regular communication, all the way down to I understand the role of our school social worker. We want our families to really engage with the school in a year or 2 years where we know that engagement has been a little bit difficult. The pandemic has had a lot of negative effects, and I would say that not being able to engage with our community as much as we have wanted to or like to was probably one of the repercussions of that. I was pretty happy with the results. As you can see in front of you, the bar graphs represent different ethnicities, and there are some clear gaps between either our white, our Black, or our Hispanic families and community members and how they feel about school. But I am confident and happy that most of our averages are really over 4.2 or closer to 4.5, or in the 80th percentile and higher. We do have a couple that are a little bit lower over here, and these are some of our focus areas right now. I have received information on how to join the Morris Brandon Parent Teacher Association or other parent organizations at the school. And I do want to give a shout out to our PTA for really streamlining some of those volunteer opportunities. All parents in homeroom should have gotten an email from their room parent that talks about PTA volunteer opportunities. We've wanted to post those opportunities on our website and make sure that those opportunities are available to all families and all parents. Whether it's a PTA position or just a volunteer position in the school, we really want to encourage our families to look at those opportunities on our website or through the email that came from your room parents. And the last one really has to do with understanding the role of our school social worker. We noticed that average was much lower than all of the rest. And Miss Durant is just an incredible resource for our school. And I really think that she is breaking the stigma of what a school social worker is. And she has responded to the survey with some Meet the Social Worker nights. We've done some bios in the B-mail. And I just want our families and communities to know that our school social worker is just an area of support. And I do think that there's probably a bit of a negative connotation when you hear the word social worker, but at our school, it's really just a continuation of our counseling program and student support. So if you ever get connected with our school social worker, you just know that she is just like Miss Whitaker, has a really special skill set with helping students and families. And of course, if you ever need anything, whether it's confidential or not, she is available to support you in our school. So we're very, very lucky and happy to have her. And then in response to the survey, go to the next slide. There's a few things that we're doing as a school. A couple of things that Mr. Hudson and myself and some of the teachers have been doing around family and community engagement is really talking to our students and listening to them. We partnered with the Mexican consulate, and I want to thank Mr. Hudson for building that relationship and coming out and really helping us with the culture piece of our dual language immersion program, but also providing translators and supports for students for some of our Spanish speaking students, which is a great partnership for us to have. We are beginning to bring back cultural performances, and we will definitely do more of that next year. We have very limited, very low, suspension rates. We don't suspend anybody really. What we do is restorative justice, and we really are working with our students and our social worker and our counselor and our administrators on really teaching students the right behavior. In elementary school, you have to have corrective behavior, and you have to teach them what that right behavior is, and that is something that we're getting trained on and continuing to work with. Mr. Hudson and myself will continue to do our monthly SEL videos. Plug to watch this month. We just filmed it. An awesome book by Amanda Gorman. That video will be coming out soon. We also do SEL every morning with our students. And then, we're riding the buses home with our kids. We want to get into the communities and see some of that. So with our teachers, we've done a lot of work around what's called the 6 teacher equity dispositions. Most notably, there's a teacher equity disposition number 2, which talks a lot about holding all students to high expectations, but then also finding different ways to assess our students and to teach our students, but using their cultural and linguistic backgrounds. And we know that all students learn differently, and all of our students come with a rich, rich history and backgrounds of their cultures and communities. And we're really working with our students and providing professional learning on how our teachers can take the diversity they have in their class and help to gear and structure lessons to make it more aligned with IB, but also with the way that their students are going to learn. We're very happy that our school district does have a Center for Equity and Social Justice, and we've partnered with them. We just completed our first round of implicit bias training for our staff actually this last week. Implicit bias is something that really all teachers and all educators should get. And basically, we're talking about the biases that we have inside of us that sometimes we don't really know we have. And we want our teachers to be able to recognize that and be able to respond to some of that. So it's a really great training that we started with, and it's not just a one-day thing. We're looking at really shifting the way we teach our students and the way we view our students in our school, the way we view some of our struggling students, the way we see and teach some of our newer students that come in the middle of the year. And we want to make sure that everybody just has the best opportunity to learn and grow at our awesome school. Some of the things our teachers did was create what's called equity checklists for their classrooms, and just kind of one of those things that they can use to self-reflect. Am I calling on all students? Am I calling on one student who always knows the answer? Am I creating lessons and units that help to build upon those cultural backgrounds of our students? Are all students feeling being heard? Are they getting small group? Are they getting individual teacher time? These are all things that we wanted our teachers to create and ultimately hold themselves accountable for, because teaching is one of those professions where there's a clear start and stop. There's not a lot of jobs that are like that, right? I mean, it's like year round. Teaching, you have a start, you have a middle, you have an end, and you literally start over every year right where you left off. There's not a lot of jobs like that. And in order to continue to grow and be a better teacher, you have to participate in professional learning and trainings and be able to adapt and adjust to change like that in order to be your best self. So that's something that is really, really important for our staff and for us as well. Just one quick thing about SAMR, that has to do with technology integration. We got a lot of computers out there, and now we really need to make sure that we're using those computers the right way. A typical SAMR model stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And we want to make sure that we're not just using our computers to substitute assignments. Instead of just writing on a piece of paper, are we just typing it on a document? That's the lowest level of tech integration. So we're doing some work around technology integration with our ETS, which is our staff member who helps us with technology, our educational technology specialist, it stands for. And we're at the beginning stages of this, and this really lends itself to personalized learning, something that we'll be focusing on a lot more next year as we pilot the program in year 2 of the implementation. But it is something that we really want to begin to look at. What do our kindergartners need to know and be able to do on a computer versus what our second graders versus what our fifth graders need to do, and really see that continuum. And then also make sure that we are using our computers to the best of our ability, that we're augmenting, modifying, and even redefining how we are learning using our technology integrations in our computers. So that's some work we're doing. And we talked about the equity dispositions. For our parents, we had a great listening session with some of our parents. We surveyed a lot of our community and a lot of our family to learn a little bit more. We're collaborating with the Latin Parent Association. We're going to continue to have more focus groups, social worker chats, and so much more too. So I just wanted to keep everybody posted, because the ultimate goal is going to be that student success. Everything we do at Brandon is geared towards our children and our students. And sometimes in education, you forget about that, right? There's a lot of other conflicting things that are happening. You guys don't always sit behind the desk in the computer, but I'm sure that you can understand where I'm coming from, that we have to make sure that these are, that our students are always first. Sometimes, the teachers or the parents or the community takes precedent, but we always want to bring it back to our children and our students, because that's why we're here. That's why we have jobs. And we want to make sure also that we have a culturally competent staff, a more inclusive environment for our stakeholders. We want to make sure our parents trust the school and feel respected, of course, but ultimately, what's it come down to? That's student success. So do I have any questions around that? Let's see, I had one come in that talks a little bit about the best way to get a hold of the social worker or the school counselor. The best way to do that, first and foremost, if you ever have a question around that, and I'm sorry, I got the sun always comes right at me at 10 o'clock. I think that's probably a good thing. It's like, so my face is a little sunny, but the best way to get a hold of our school social worker or our counselor, one, if you don't know their names, and our school social worker is Jennifer Durant and our counselor is Tamala Whitaker, you can just call the school. Just call the school and ask for their email. Simple enough. We don't have any voicemails. We will never have a voicemail at school as long as somebody's at that desk, and they should always be there. We want to answer that phone call and that before 3 rings. That's what we do. Ask them for that email. But if not, just shoot me an email. We can find it. But those emails are also posted on the website. Jennifer Durant and Tamala Whitaker Jackson are our counselors. Just reach out to them, and your homeroom teacher can also give you that. If I had the time and I didn't want to mess up the emails, I don't have them memorized, I would type them in the chat box. But just make sure that we can get it for you. All right, let's keep moving. I want to talk for a second around some of the budget stuff that we've done.
Hey, Jay.
This is a big year. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have a question about technology integration and guidelines about screen times at the various grades during the school day. Like, is there something we do at home? Do we do that at school too? Restrict screen time?
Yeah, so no, I don't have, I really don't. I have not come down with this is how much time these kids need to be on the computer, because I don't want to micromanage that. And I also want to make sure that my teachers understand that I trust them and know that when they're on the computer, they're doing something educational or worthwhile. I'm more so inclined to make sure that I know what our kids need to be able to do at those grade levels. And while if we feel like our kids are on the computer too much, and that's been a concern every now and again, we just have a conversation with the teacher. But there are times during the day where I'm absolutely positive and know those kids are not on the computer. That has to do a lot with our core content when the teacher's doing direct instruction. It has to do obviously during our specials time, during a lot of our French time, obviously, recess and lunch, and then of course, some of our small group and higher order thinking skills, and even our intervention time. So that's something that we want to do. And I'm looking at some of the questions here just around the screen time. Be avoided during breaks or waiting times at carpool. That is definitely a suggestion that I can give. I'm not aware of when kids are on while they're waiting for carpool, unless they're sitting in the classroom. It seems like that would be a time really where it probably would be okay to get on the computer, because we just want to make sure we get the kids out. But if we feel like that's a distraction or anything, just shoot me an email and let me know. But I probably need a little bit more information around that. Thank you so much for also putting those social worker and our counselor email on there. And then I see one more question just around do anything to recognize months or days that celebrate different cultures. And then that is true. Yes, we do a Hispanic Heritage recital. We typically do a Black History performance, but this year it will be recorded and shared out. That's going to be done in our music classes and our French classes. We also highlight many of these famous people and historical figures on our morning announcements. Our teachers teach lessons. And as we are able to get more cultural performances back into the school, we will definitely look at making sure that we increase that for next year as well. But we have some stuff that'll be coming out later on in the book. And I see a suggestion for audiobooks. Yes, we have a lot of that already on my backpack, a lot of educational tools. And I just want to reiterate that when kids are on the computer, they really shouldn't be on YouTube Kids. That's not something that's really we want or we see a lot. But we also, our kids are always on educational programs. There's a lot of them they are on. So except for outside of maybe Minecraft education, for the most part, the programs that our kids are on during dismissal and other parts of the day are always going to be educational. And if you hear anything else or you have any suggestions or ideas, let me know. But we're going to talk about some of those programs here in just a little bit. Let's keep going though, because we are at 10:20. I got a lot to talk about. I want to update everyone on some of the work that we've been doing with our GO team. Our GO team is our school governance team, and it consists of 9 community staff and parent positions. I am the 10th. I'm a non-voting member. And one of the biggest thing our GO team does is help to set our strategic plan, rank our priorities, make sure that we have strategies to reach those priorities, and then we have measurable data at the end. What that does is it helps to drive the $7.5 million budget that I am given to run our school for next year. And we're going to talk just for a second about how we get that number and some of the things that we are doing in our marathon GO team meetings that have been lasting upwards of 2 hours the last couple of weeks. But it is it's a great team and a great place to work and a great group of people. So we are right here at the bottom where we are now taking a look at some of the budget choices. We've done our data review. We looked at our strategic plan. We've ranked our priorities, and now we are really going to take a look at where we want to put that money. This is a little bit around the principal's role and the GO team's role. I just wanted to include this slide. I don't need to read this to you, but if you have any questions around what the GO team's role is in the budget, you can see that it has to do with focusing on that big picture and ensuring that our budget is aligned to our mission and vision and our strategic plan. And these are things that we have written and done with our GO team either this year or in the past as well. You usually write a strategic plan about every 5 years. Our strategic plan was written about 1.5 years ago. And then when a pandemic hits, sometimes you got to change it a little bit, don't you? Well, what we had to do was really change some of these key performance measures because everything was based off of the Georgia milestones. And since we do not really have reliable Georgia milestone data for the past 2 years, what we did as a GO team is we set key performance measures this year based off of our winter MAP data, MAP data. Once we take our Georgia milestones for 3 through 5, which is going to be mandatory for all 3 through 5 public school students across the state of Georgia, in just a couple of months, we will reset our key performance measures for next year. And you can read some of those on here. We've also got our school priorities here. I am fully aware that it's not the greatest screen to look at, by the way. So if you ever want a copy of this, it's posted on our website. It's posted under the Go Team tab, and I'm also happy to send it to you. But it really talks about our priorities that are broken into 4 buckets: programming, talent management, systems and resources, and culture. It talks about our school strategies and those key performance measures for that. But let's get into our budget. Well, before I do that, really quickly, 2 school priorities we set, really overarching 1,000-foot view, has to do increasing student mastery in ELA, math, science, and social studies, but also making sure our subgroups are making academic progress across all content areas. You may hear me say that word subgroup a lot. Remember that our subgroup is our smaller part of our demographic. So if we are 60% white, then our subgroups are going to be our Black students, our Hispanic students, our Asian students, our mixed students, our special education students, and our language learners. By the time you get to the Georgia milestones, they have targets for those subgroups, and we have to make sure we're reaching those targets. In order to have a target for a subgroup, you must have at least 15 students that qualify for that subgroup in grades 3 through 5. So just to kind of give you a little bit of the background on that. Here's our SMART goal, and a SMART goal, it has to be specific and measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. If we have any education people on here, you may already know that. But as we go through the budget, here's our number. This is our operating budget for next year, and I want to talk about that just for a second. First of all, shout out to APS for allowing local schools to control their budget. We know what's best for our community. We know what's best for our school and for our students. And back in the day, not even back in the day, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, APS would say, you lost this many teachers, or here's your budget, this is what you're going to have. But now all the positions and all of the staffing and decisions are really on the school level, the local school level, ultimately with me and the Go Team. This budget right here is a lot less than it was last year, because it's predicting 85 less students. But I want to talk about that. Last year, we were predicted at basically 885 students. And we received a budget that would help fund 885 students. However, we did not come near that. We reached right about 800 students is where we are right now. But because of the pandemic and because of the CARES funding and some forgiveness, we did not have to pay back that money for those 85 extra students. So currently right now in our school, we are actually staffed for having 85 more students. Keep in mind, a class size is about 22. So you're talking, that's about 3 homerooms or 3 full-time staff members. But the time has come now to level that budget and make sure that it is aligned to our exact student population. They're predicting to be 794. And we are right around that right now. I think we're at like 797. It kind of changes by the day. But let's talk about how we got that budget. It's a decrease of 85 students. I just want to talk to you about our projections for next year, because this is important. These are our grade level projections. So if you are in kindergarten right now, you're projected to have 124 of you returning in first grade. That's a decrease of about 11 students. If you're in first grade right now, you're projected at having 142 second graders. That's a larger number, all the way down to 5th grade, which often does drop off a little bit because we do lose a lot of students between 4th and 5th. I want you to pay careful attention to this kindergarten number. This is great news for a school that has lost over 200 students in 4 years. To see 160 kindergartners projected to come to Morris Brandon is awesome for our school and our community. It means that our parents are excited about Morris Brandon, about coming back to Morris Brandon. They're hearing great things about our school from you all and from our community. Our school tours have been popping with lots of people, and it's going really well. So that's what we want to see. But it's oftentimes difficult to staff 160 for kindergarten when we are at a budget loss of, and I'll talk to you about what that is, but it's close to about $500,000 in the negative. And that's the work that I'm doing with the Go Team. In order to get to this number, all of these students also carry weight. So I want to talk about this. Every student in APS, picture them wearing a backpack, and inside that backpack is $4,506. It travels with that student in any school they go to. It's called an equity formula. It's a student success formula. So the money travels the student now, but that is just the base weight. If we were to take 794, multiply by that weight, that's the allocation we would get just for our students. But our students also bring in a little bit more money. For example, kindergarten brings in a 0.6 weight, which is very high compared to all the other grade levels. So you take that 160, multiply it by the base weight, and then times 0.6, and it brings in an additional $432,000. That's why we want a lot of kindergartners. That's why we want a lot of students. It goes all the way down for first through third, which is 0.25. And then you got down to fourth and fifth, which don't carry any weight. Also, just take note down here, we have 55 students that have qualified for free or reduced lunch, probably a little bit higher than that. I'm not quite sure how they get that number since we are a CEP school right now where everybody gets free food, breakfast and lunch. But that may be from a couple of years ago. Carries a 0.5 weight. We get 123,000 more for poverty. We don't have a concentration here. We have 74 students that qualify for EIP. That's our early intervention. They carry a very heavy weight, bring in a lot of money, our gifted students and so forth. And that's how we build out our budget for next year. I'm seeing a couple questions. So before I just continue with this, and to keep my brain sane, Lilia, can you read those to me, please?
Yes, I can. So we had a couple questions about pre-K and whether or not that counted in our numbers and what the implications of these projections, whether or not they have any implications on the future of pre-K at Morris Brandon.
Great question. Real quickly, let's update pre-K right now. So I'm not reading it all, so hopefully you captured it all. So you're right, pre-K is never factored into our enrollment. The reason being because that money is not placed into my student success formula. It's not placed into my bucket. The way pre-K works is completely state funded. They pay for the teachers, they pay for the paraprofessional, and they pay for all the students and the supplies. We are basically just a school that is housing a state of Georgia pre-K inside of it. So that because of that, we don't get any money for pre-K students. They are not going to be inside of our budget. Quick pre-K update, just so everybody knows, is a good place to say it. And I know I had mentioned about possibly getting another pre-K, but at this point in time, we were denied another pre-K for next year. And the reason being is because there are way too many open pre-K spots in the city of Atlanta right now. While we could probably fill 10 pre-Ks at Morris Brandon, no problem. Keep in mind that a student can go to any pre-K in the city of Atlanta at any school as long as they live within the city of Atlanta municipality. So the state of Georgia is basically saying before we open up another pre-K, let's fill out our other pre-Ks. So we will still have one pre-K next year. They're not factored into our budget, but we are so happy to have them here. Anything else on that, Lilia?
Yes, we have one other question that I'm going to read to you because it's kind of long.
Okay.
I don't want to get it right. So how many African-American teachers does Brandon have at the 4th and 5th grade level? This is from a parent who recently moved to the area and wants to learn more about Brandon and find the best learning environment for their child, and is concerned with reports of past bias and wants to know what steps have been taken to conquer those issues and to ensure all children are encouraged and all are being lifted in a loving and productive setting. How can a parent feel confident that the local school will be a fair learning environment? How does this compare to?
That's
Sorry,
a great question. That's a I would say that's a lot to talk about right now. I would say absolutely reach out to me and I will have an awesome conversation with you and talk about that. In regard to the number of African American teachers in 4th and 5th, that changes every year. It'll change again next year, but there's probably 2 or 3, including special education and homeroom teachers. We look at a variety, our intervention teachers, we look at paraprofessionals. So it's kind of a loaded question, but it absolutely matches our demographics. Mm-hmm. How can I feel confident in a fair learning environment? These are all things that we can talk through, but hopefully you would feel confident that we do have a fair learning environment here based off of parent and student surveys and feedback. I have no comparison to local private schools. We never compare ourselves to private schools. That is apple to oranges. So we don't talk about private schools. I don't know how they do. So I can't really answer that question. Where are children going in 4th and 5th? They're going to private schools. They leave. They have to take their SATs and ACTs a little bit early. So they often leave 4th and 5th to go to private schools. And do I have info on growth in the classroom at the 4th and 5th grade level? I assume by growth, you mean academic growth. And yes, I have all of that. I have all of that information. So just reach out to me. And I believe that is Rich. And we'll have an awesome, rich conversation around that to make sure you get all of your answers. Okay. Let's keep rolling though, because I got a lot more to cover. I want to talk about our CARES funding, which is next. We are very lucky to have $192,760 that came to us in CARES funding. That helps to supplement some of the loss that we have with 85 students. We're very lucky to have that, and CARES funding can be used for a variety of ways, and the GO team and myself helped to set that trajectory. And I didn't have all those ways listed on here, but CARES funding needs to go directly back to students. It needs to be student-centered. So it can be to help fund teachers, wraparound services, social emotional screeners, SEL, anything in between, but it can't go to like purchasing food or parties or that kind of thing. It goes directly to our students. So we're lucky to have that dollar amount. So this is a little bit about what's next. We have to have our budget finally approved by March 18th. So we have that meeting on the 17th to get it approved. I meet with, HR and my boss and go through all of our staffing. And then ultimately we'll put a stamp on our budget for next year and make sure that it is aligned to our strategic plans. And that's something that is important to us and all principals at this time. All schools are doing this in APS. All right, let's talk a little bit about school data. I do just want to show this. This is kind of the $1 million view down here. You can see a little bit around all of the exams that APS has taken on top with the Brandon exams down below. This is aligned to the Georgia Milestone level of performance. So if you know MAP data, you really have 5 categories. You have low average, you have average, you have high average, and high. That's how MAP is broken out. But they take those and clump them together according to how the Georgia Milestones would measure performance. The red is a beginning learner, the yellow is developing, the green is proficient, and the dark green is distinguished. As you talk about CCRPI, which is how we rank our schools, it's called the College and Career Readiness Performance Index. We really want all of our students, as many as possible, to be in the green. Just proficient. You want to be proficient at the end of the grade level. With that, the pandemic has created, problems. We know that we have extended our school day by 15 minutes on the front end, on the back end. We know that we have intervention in the mornings. We have our win blocks for students to get what they need to be successful. And we also have our ARA, which is our Academic Recovery Academy that'll be done each summer, coming again for summer number 2 coming up. But this is this is a very, very high level. It's not even broken into actual subjects. But we also talk a little bit about growth targets. We had a goal as a school and as a staff to have 80% of our students have a growth percentile above a 50. And we realized pretty quickly that that's a really tough goal to have. But these are growth targets that MAP sets for students based on fall. So however you score on fall, if you get a RIT score of a 206, they're going to tell you that this student's growth target is going to be a 214 in the winter, depending on the grade level in the content area. And MAP, the algorithm knows this student, if they're progressing at the right rate, should be at that number. Well, if you look at us as a school, this is math data. Math is one of those struggling areas for us, really all schools right now, because math is so conceptual and it's been tough the last few years. But we're right around really 60% of our students hitting that growth percentile or hitting that growth target that MAP has set for them, which is okay. It does not mean that 40% of our students did poorly or did terrible. As a matter of fact, many of our students are high achieving, but maybe did not grow or did not hit that growth target. Many of our students, some of our students are low achieving, but they hit that growth target. But what we ultimately will measure our success by is that our students are growing and outperforming the majority of students that are like them. So we are going to continue to monitor MAP. This is the first year we've ever done it. We're really digging into the data, and we look to see even higher growth in our spring window that'll be coming up in March. Here's a little bit of language arts. You can see we made some really, really big strides in language arts about 4 years ago. You can see some of the grade levels that were much stronger with their growth targets. Keep in mind that MAP is norm reference. Some of the questions, they change as you do better and harder. And, we only had a half a year of content when we took our winter. But at the same time, you can see the data, really anywhere between 40 and 60% of our students are reaching their targets. And then remember, green is all okay, whether you're around the dark green or the light green. And if you're the really dark green, it means you're surpassing your growth targets a little bit higher. I want to talk a little bit about just creating targets for our students as well. One of the goals for APS and Brandon in general is to close the achievement gap between our subgroups. And that's something that we are always focusing on and always looking at. We had a PLC recently with our teachers to where we all sat down and went through our MAP data, and we filtered out our subgroup students. So we wanted to see where they were performing, and many of them were performing very, very well, and they had the opportunity to really close that achievement gap. So we actually drilled it down by the number of students on each grade level, and we've identified who those students are, who we feel like can be pushed to grow, and can be pushed into proficient or even that distinguished category, to really help us close that achievement gap. So we're being really intentional around our students and around our data. And we always want to continue to give all of our students what they need to be successful, which is written in our mission and vision. And you can see it in our win blocks and in our intervention blocks and within our homerooms. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about that. My last coffee talk that we'll have at the end of the year, I will review our end of year MAP data, and we can definitely break it up by grade level. All of our parents should have already received their MAP growth reports and had the opportunity to have a winter conference, and we will do a spring conference as well. We will kind of close the loop on MAP for this school year. Okay. Do I have any questions just so far in that chat box at all, Lilia, around data? Doesn't look like it. Let's keep rolling. I want to talk about 2 computer programs that we've purchased using local school funds, that our students are loving, and it's really helping us to move the needle some now that we have got them up and rolling. This is outside of our intervention, APS provided intervention programs. You may have heard your children talk a little bit about Happy Numbers. We bought this for all students. It's an awesome math program that helps to really move our students through the content standards. It tells us a little bit about a learning continuum, tells us what students worked on, tells us the total time spent and their accuracy, and teachers are able to print out reports and tailor instruction based off of the feedback from Happy Numbers. And then another favorite that you guys probably all know about is MyLexia. MyLexia is not a cheap program. It's really only purchased in the district for our language learners, but we use it for all students, and all students at Brandon have an account and really should be using it. And if your child is not using it, especially at the lower grades, reach out to your teacher and see if you can learn a little bit more. But we've been pushing this pretty hard, and you can see how we're moving our students based off of the start to the current. And we're talking about grade level material here. It's important to note that CCRPI, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second, how we rate our school is going to be much different again this year. And the only rating we're going to get for our school is going to be on content mastery, is going to be how many of our students are on grade level at the end of the year. That is not always the best way to rank a school. One, it's not apples to apples when you compare schools, but 2, you're not factoring in any growth. You're not factoring in any students reading on grade level, attendance, and everything else. But the state of Georgia has to get baseline data again. Because of that, we are making a big push right now to introduce just content grade level curriculum and standards for these next 3 months, especially for our upper grades, because it's important that we can push as many students as we can into proficient, knowing that that's going to be our CCRPI or our school rating for next year. Let's talk about CCRPI really quickly. This is a cool calculator that I found on a typical school year. If anybody remembers, our last full basically CCRPI was my first year here, which was 17, 18, I think. And our CCRPI was a 96, which was great, right? 96 out of 100. We filled all the buckets. We did a great job. And ever since then, we have not had a rating because with everything that's happened with the pandemic. So what we're focusing on this year is primarily just the content mastery. In order to get this score, I took all of our proficient and distinguished learners in 3 through 5. I plugged them into the calculator. It gave this is the weight that it uses, and this is the score that we got. So if we were to give our school a content mastery score out of 100 right now, based off of MAP, this is kind of what we would be looking at. I'm hoping that the milestones are even higher, especially with 3 months more of instruction. But this is something to kind of give us an idea about how our students are going to perform at the very end of the year. Progress has to do with students' growth percentiles or the percentage that they're growing. And we have those on MAP. And I tried to kind of filter them out into the categories to get some type of progress score. Just to give you an idea, typical growth is between the 40th and the 60th percentile. We know 50 is right in the middle. Over 50, you're outperforming students that are like you. Under 50, more students are outperforming you. So we were able to clump them into those different categories. And we got 88.8 points for progress, which means basically from that spring fall to spring, we had pretty decent progress on our map. Can always be better. I like to see our numbers in the 90s. We don't have any closing gap scores. That's basically targets that the state sets for our subgroup students. We will get that after we take our milestones. So we'll see how our special ed students did in reading and math. And then they're going to say next year that your special ed students have to do this well. And then we'll see if we can hit those closing the gap marks. And then readiness has to do with the percentage of students that are reading on grade level. This is a much lower score, I will tell you. It's probably not very reliable. I basically just took the proficient and distinguished learners and considered them as students reading on grade level, and everybody else is not. That's not really how it works, though. There's lots of students that are in the developing category on reading and milestones that are still reading on grade level. But readiness also factors in, now I think it's on the next screen, student attendance. And that's not going to be on our CCRPI this year, which is probably a good thing, but we're still at 93.8. Remember that we have to stay over 90. It's the expectation that all students are present 90% of the times that they're enrolled. And then out of our total count, and then beyond the core is basically just the percentage of students that are enrolled in a fine arts or foreign language. And that's 100% of our students. So that's a little bit how in the back of my head, I try and kind of work backwards to get some CCRPI. But again, the most important thing is this right here. All right, well, it's 10:42. So let's talk just really quickly about COVID, because this is not a focus area that I want to talk about right now, but I want to answer any questions that you may have. So just really quickly,
Right.
Yes.
We did have one, just a quick couple questions about the apps, the learning apps that are available to our kids.
Sure.
That you mentioned. Is there a way for a parent to get a progress report from those apps? And also, will the kids have access to them over the summer?
Yes, great questions. As long as you are enrolled at Brandon, you will have the app and access all summer. You will take your Chromebooks with you. We encourage our students to sign up for ARA if they would like to. And yes, you will have access. Don't forget, you can access all those apps through My Backpack on any desktop as well. So it doesn't have to be on your computer. The other question had to do around monitoring. Yes, parents, have we heard about the app called Securely? Securely is an app that our teachers use and parents have as well. And we have to teach you how to use that. I can get something in the B-mail next week where you get a daily, weekly, or monthly report on what your students were accessing on their computer and how long they were on there. In regard to how they're doing on the apps, that's more of a progress report that I would reach out to your teacher. But for the most part, you can monitor exactly how your student is using their computer at school through that Securely app. So what we can do, Lelia, if you want to make a kind of a mental note for the B-mail next week, let's dig into that a little bit more and get some instructions out to our community on how they can sign up for that. And it's really, our media specialists are also great resources for that. So you can see how much time our kids were on certain apps.
Yes. And also, Jay, do we have specific information about ARA for the summer and signing up and all that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't yet. I was supposed to have a meeting last Friday. It got pushed back a little bit. I think they're just trying to get all of their ducks in a row. I have a principal meeting on Wednesday, and that is basically like the day before we leave for our break, but that's going to be our ARA meeting. And as soon as we come back on the 22nd, I believe the information will begin to get pushed out. All right, Guillermo's got one more question. Let's read it. Guillermo, I know math language has the higher priorities on the IB curriculum. How's art and music been approached in the school context? I may need a little more information on that. I will tell you that math and language is a high priority on our school strategic plan. In the IB curriculum and our IB learner, our IB planners, everything is kind of equal. So we really just, I think you may be talking about our school strategic plan, but I can tell you, how is art and music being approached in the school context? Well, a lot of that answer has to do with staffing. I'm very, very pleased to let you know that we are still fully staffed with 2 media specialists, 2 full-time art teachers, 2 full-time music teachers, 2 PE teachers, and so forth. We do a lot with the IB curriculum with those teachers, but I think that if you saw those programs not being important, it would be affected by the amount of staff that are teaching them. So if you want to have more of a conversation with me around that, Guillermo, let me know. But I'm happy to say that there's not many schools that have 2 media specialists or those other specialists that I mentioned, because They're awesome and we need them in our schools. And I taught PE for 10 years and I understand the importance of that as well. So hopefully you don't confuse the IB curriculum with the school strategic plan on there as well. All right, Lily, anything else? So should we keep rolling and wrap it up? Okay, real quick COVID updates. I had this slide on here. There was a lot of questions around masks and PE. I'm going to jump down to this third bullet first. Just read this right here. I want everybody to know that mitigation questions are beyond my pay grade. I'm just going to leave it at that. So if you have questions around masks, PE, or anything else that has to do with COVID, go ahead and put it into Let's Talk. I will help you. You can send me the question. I do it all the time. Let's Talk is on atlantapublicschools.us, the main page. Scroll to the right, just look at the right. You're going to see a Let's Talk button. Drop it in there because I don't have answers around when our mask's going to be gone. Or anything along those lines. And while I do believe communication around that will come out very, very soon, I just want to say that you can probably bypass me and just go straight to APS to get some of those questions. I'll say this though, there was a lot of questions around masks and PE, and I was following some of that conversation on Twitter and Facebook and so forth. I do want you to know that I think there was some miscommunication around that. So I did put this in there that APS has now said that masks cannot come off during indoor PE. If you have any questions around that, put it in the Let's Talk platform. I put a link on this. We'll share the slideshow on our website. All this will be posted if you want to follow that link. But it's much different in middle school and high school when you start talking about athletic competitions and things like that. So there's a lot to navigate. So I really just took out this one little blurb so you all can see that. But more communication to come with that. Send me an email if you want. I'll start a Let's Talk ticket for you. Question, no, but I got an awesome comment about how much our students are growing in math and language. So shout out to that person for sending that to me. So thank you. I want to let you also know that the APS has posted these dashboards every week. This is our COVID cases for the last week. Take a look at it if you ever want to. You can find Brandon right here. We had 3 cases and 2 exposures. I want to remind you that the bulk of our exposures, our students are allowed to stay in school because they've either consented for testing or are fully vaccinated. So it's really not an issue if you're an exposed student now. But I will just say that COVID has fallen off a cliff. Cases have dropped between 65 and 70%. Everything is going well. And I understand that masks are difficult for our parents really to comprehend having in school. I think our kids are okay. I just want you to know that our school is back to normal, and it has been normal for a while, and our students are engaged and they're moving around and they're having fun and they're eating in the cafeterias. Their masks are off in the cafeterias. They're outside. We have all of our programming happening, and I feel like we're in a good spot. If you have any questions around that, just let me know, and you can follow the COVID updates here. All right, I think that's it. Oh, let's do a little what's next really quickly. There's a lot coming down. It's a busy time of year. Just so you know, we do have our behavior emotional, social emotional screener coming up. That's that triage of data for our 3-5 students. Our students take it, our parents take it, our teachers take it. We triangulate the data and formulate a plan for the students that need it. You can opt out of that, but I think the opt-out was due yesterday, maybe. We have our MAP spring window coming up in March. That's going to give us kind of that really good end of year data outside of milestones, but especially for our K2 students. We are gifted testing right now, a ton of students, which is great. We have a Hive rally today. Go Yellow Hive, whoop whoop. We have Valentine's Day celebration, which kids just love on Monday. They love that. We'll have a lot of visitors in the building on that day. On the horizon, I didn't put dates next to it. So if you have questions around dates, probably look at the website, or maybe Lelia can punch them in the chat. But we do have our auction coming up. We are planning our field day for the end of the year, our fun run, probably during our PE and during the day. We're planning for our GMAS, our Georgia Milestone Administration, the first real one in so many years. And gosh, before you know it, our 5th graders are going to be walking across that stage. So it is a busy time of year. There's so much more happening, but I just put some of the other things, some of the highlights. We're looking at getting our 2nd grade students up to the main campus one day to visit. Of course, our readathon is coming up. How can I forget the readathon? That is huge. And we have guest authors and Spirit Weeks coming up and just so much more. So we are excited and we are moving. We are not just surviving, we are thriving. And I want to thank you guys for coming. It is 10:50, 10 minutes to spare. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook, morrisbrandon.com. Shoot me an email if you want to. And if there's anything you need, I'm always here for you. Just let me know. And so is my team. That's all I got, Lelia, if you want to close it out or make any announcements.
Nothing for me. Just keep an eye on the website and the B-mail. If you're not signed up for the B-mail, you can do so at morrisbrandon.com. And it is the weekly wealth of information. That's all. Thank you, Jay, for all these great updates. We appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll post this soon. Have a good one.